So the topic that I'm going to talk about today is complexity within Unity, which I think is quite suitable for this particular day. So I'm relatively new to Unity, and when I hear the word Unity, we often talk about oneness. There's only love, only peace. But when I think about Unity, that means we're uniting something into one, right? So I'm always thinking about, okay, so what are some of the smaller pieces we're trying to unite? So it's an exercise I like to do on my own, just try to deconvolute things a little bit. So the topic that I like to focus on today is compassion. And I think it's a quite suitable topic for this day and age and for Mother's Day as well. So first, what is compassion? Compassion, did the microphone go out?
You're on.
Oh, no, okay. So compassion came from Latin compati, means to suffer with. The more comprehensive modern day definition is the emotional response of recognizing the suffering of others, combined with a deep desire and motivation to alleviate that suffering. And this is different from sympathy, which is feeling sorry for someone's misfortune, like when you go to someone's funeral and say, I'm sorry for your loss. So that's sympathy. And that is different from empathy, which is to be able to take a perspective of and feel the emotions of another person. So you see, compassion goes one step beyond sympathy and empathy. We also have a deep desire and motivation to alleviate the suffering of others. So immediately, I think we can start to see the complexity of compassion, right? We all have different definition of what is suffering. Someone's other suffering, we might not be able to identify with it. And also to alleviate someone else's suffering, that can be quite easy to do for those who we love and people whose values that we share, right? It's quite straightforward. We can all do that. But what if it's someone who has hurt you deeply? Alleviating that person's suffering, does that invalidate our suffering? And what if it's someone whose value systems completely seem to be opposite to ours? If we try to alleviate their suffering, does that mean we're invalidate our own value system? So you can see there's complexity there for sure, and we're going to get into that. And this conundrum is actually described in the scripture. Matthew 5:43-48, on loving your enemies. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. For he takes his sunrise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward have you? Do not even tax collectors do the same? And if you greet your brethren only, what do you do more than others? Do not even the tax collectors do so? Therefore you shall be perfect, just as your Father in heaven is perfect. So as we know, tax collectors are considered the lowest of lows at that time. So essentially, that's what Jesus was saying, to love and be compassionate to those who we love. And that's, anyone can do it, right? It's the easy form of love. It comes naturally to each one of us. But he's calling us to rise up to the harder form of love. How do we love those who we disagree with and those who have hurt us or those who hold very different value systems from us? So that's the conundrum. So I certainly don't feel qualified to stand up here and preach at anyone or preach to anyone about love or compassion. But I thought what I can do is to share a story of how an act of compassion changed my perspective on a rather polarizing topic, and we can distill some of lessons that I learned from this experience. So I'm an immigrant. I moved to the United States from Shanghai, China when I was 18, and I did a legal way through family and through education, and a number of years later, I became a United States citizen. But maybe, or to your surprise, I held a very stern conventional conservative view on immigration. And I felt I did it the legal way, everyone else should have done it too. So if you cross the border illegally, and you get caught, and you got thrown into prison, and if you get treated harshly, well, it's your own fault. You broke the law, and you have to take consequences. So I held that view for many, many years, even though I was in a very liberal environment. That's how I felt. And I shared this view with a very close friend at some point. And he was quite appalled, but he did not shame me. He asked me why I would say that, and so I explained. And so he shared his view with me that people are just trying to find a better life. They are suffering in their home country. They're trying to find a better life, and sometimes there's no good way of doing it, and people don't necessarily have the resources to do the way that I did. But that does not justify treating them like they're not humans. So I understood that, but something understanding and embodiment are two very different things. So I started to be able to hold both perspectives, but at the same time, I don't think my view really changed that much until we went to Switzerland, his home country, for the first time together. And what he just very casually showed, hey, look, we don't have homeless here because we as a nation, we prioritize taking care of our people. And he showed me that we have also have a lot of migrants, and we give them housing assistance while we process their application. So that we want to make sure people who are suffering in their home country have the opportunity to possibly have a better chance in a different country. And during the process, we want to make it easy for them. And the society is, it's a very rich country. It's a very orderly country. No one's losing anything by being compassionate to others. So that experience and this whole thing probably lasted several years. And so let's just say now my view is very much in alignment with his view on this issue. And so that was the one act of compassion that really changed my perspective. So what are some of the lessons I learned through this experience? So first, to me, the essence of compassion is to have curiosity. And he did call me out for my somewhat inhumane view on the issue. I can't remember exactly the word he used. It could be antiquated. He might have called me barbaric or something. But he wasn't really judgmental. He was curious as to why someone like me, who's obviously kind and good and caring, will have such an indifference to human suffering. So he's curious about it. And because he was curious about my view, that opened up my curiosity for his view. And so that's how the exchange began. And one thing this is a line from one of George R. R. Martin's novels, one does not need to intend harm to do harm. And I think often when we see harm, whether done to us or the marginalized group we're trying to protect, sometimes we'll automatically jump to the conclusion that there is intended harm was intended. Which is not always the case. Sometimes it can be ignorance, sometimes it can be our own limiting beliefs. So curiosity, I think, allows us to go beyond that, to not assume seeing harm based on perception means there's intention for harm. And this is very important, I think, is talked about in the scope of faith as well. Anne Lamott said, the opposite of faith is not doubt, but certainty. The opposite of faith is not doubt, but certainty. And curiosity is about having some level of healthy degree of doubt, right? Whether it's just open-mindedness, really. And sometimes I think our narratives can become very certain. This is the right way to do things, or I am right, and upholding those moral values is the right thing, everything else is wrong. But to me, that's a bit out of good intention. It's not exactly faith. Faith is about surrendering. So certainty, it has some degree of control, right? We want to control the narrative. We want to be quite absolute, or in a way taking some level moral high ground. So to me, faith is about surrendering, which means opening up ourselves to the knowledge, that opening ourselves to say, I don't have answers for everything. There's more to learn. Even if I disagree deeply, I can be curious to why someone's doing something, say something, and maybe I'll learn something on the process too. So to me, that is faith. And this is easy to say, but not that easy to do. And one reason I think curiosity, when it comes down to personal matters, is actually a deeply vulnerable experience. Because when we're going to be curious about something, we're opening ourselves, we're opening our narratives. If I say I'm wrong, I'm right, you are wrong. End of discussion. I protect my narrative. If I'm going to be curious about why did you say that, that means there's a chance I might be proven wrong, right? So to me, at least this is how I feel when it comes to being curious about personal matters, is that I can be quite vulnerable. So to me, or the way I started to learn to be more curious, is I felt it was quite necessary for me to go beyond binary narratives, saying this is the way it is, everything else is wrong. This is binary narrative. And I think in this day and age, I feel it become easier and easier to fall into the trap of having binary narratives because all the news media, because of politicians, possibly because of the family conditioning, it becomes easier to take a moral high ground or become easier to identify very strongly with our own tribe or our own group of people. And what I find particularly interesting is that there is, I see a little bit binary narrative in certain spiritual language as well. So first, I do want to emphasize that, like I said, I've only been exposed to faith for about 2.5 years. I'm definitely a newcomer, and if anything I said is incorrect, please do afterwards come up and talk to me and educate me, and for discussion, I'm very open for that, and I encourage that as well. But from so far what I see, sometimes I get a sense that the language of faith can be a little bit binary. So, for example, when we talk about light and darkness, we want to be beings of light, we want to shine light on everything. The darkness is the absence of light, right? Sounds great. But when I think about this, is I always wonder, well, if you take light, you pass through a prism, what do we see? See rainbows, right? So to me, even when we talk about light and darkness, when we talk about light, to me, that contains complexity. It is intrinsically talking about light is not one single thing. It's not wrong versus right. There's a rainbow there's a spectrum of different colors, of different perspectives. And sometimes maybe we get a little bit too closely identified with certain color, and it's difficult to see there are other colors are also part of light. So of course there's evil in the world and abuse of any kind and genocide, the list goes on. And I will consider, yes, it is darkness. But for a lot of issues that are controversial, for a reason that I think it's because we all identify strongly with a particular color. And sometimes it becomes easier that we say anything else is darkness. But a lot of situations, I think we just each have our preferred color, spectrum of colors. So sometimes when we talk about we are beings of light, and I have this little voice going up in my head, going, am I really being a being of light, or am I being a being of color? Or am I just colorful being? Or the same when we talk about let's send light out to the world, and I'm thinking, am I really sending out light, or am I just sending out particular color into the world? And we all hope other people are sending out same color, so that the world only has this color, and we suppress the other colors. So it just So this is just some of the things that I think about when I think about concept that seem to just be a single. There's only oneness. So I do feel that there's entire spectrum of colors. There's an entire spectrum of perspectives that if we can be curious, we can open ourselves to see, and perhaps together we can find common ground. And this leads to the third lesson I learned from this experience, which is how to go beyond the binary narratives, and that is to always find common humanity. Again, this day and age, not the easiest thing to do. But if we just look at the same example, the experience that I had, the very transformative experience, if you look at my friend's narrative, he was trying to protect a marginalized group, and he's being compassionate. He's trying to protect that group. Therefore, he holds a very compassionate view towards their suffering. And if you look at my view, I was trying to protect people like me. And I thought that is the right way to do it. And if people can just kind of have for free, then it was allowed for people who have done it right. So it's also out of a protective mechanism, whether what you think based on the moral values that matter. But when it comes to the nervous system, it's also out of protection. And when you think about people who get argumentative about a certain issue, they want to debate you, they want to argue with you, they're trying to protect their narrative by trying to win the argument so that everyone agree that they are right and convert more people to their side, right? So it's also protective instinct. Or if we look at people who prefer to just shut down the conversation, like end of story, I'm going to cancel, that person was saying the wrong thing, and I'm going to say our view is right, you're wrong. It's also protection. Because similar to what I talked about curiosity, when we open up our narrative for debate, really, we are giving the other person the opportunity to challenge us, to possibly prove us wrong, or just not be able to still uphold our value. So it's also a protection mechanism for our narrative, for our nervous system. So when you look at all of those scenarios, you can see the common humanity. We're all human. We all want to protect, whether to protect a marginalized, weak group, or we're trying to protect our ego, our own narrative. And in terms of moral values, we might say this is right or wrong. But when it comes down to our nervous systems, it's sometimes hard to tell, right? Our instinct goes like protect wherever we feel vulnerable. And if we go back to the definition of compassion, we talked about there's an important element of our desire to alleviate the suffering. So that's really where the protective instinct is, right? We want to alleviate the suffering, whether it's for our nervous systems or for the group. So to me, it's really not that difficult to find common humanity in situations, because we're all human. Our behavior might be different, but it comes from the same human instinct. And the next one I found to be very important is abundance mindset. And so if you look at my narrative, it's really a matter of having scarcity mindset. It's not that I'm evil, I was evil, I lack abundance mindset. And I noticed pretty much all of my behavior can be traced back to one single core wound of feeling that I'm not enough. And when, I'll just use myself as an example, when I feel like I'm not enough, then I feel that if I have to work hard for everything I have in life, and if someone else can have it in an easier way, what does that make me? It validates my experience. So I think that's why the experience of visiting Switzerland and seeing how a different society treats a similar situation, that really made me feel safe in a way to my nervous system, because it opened my eyes that it's not right or wrong. There's a third way to treat this problem, and I look around and see people having wonderful lives. It's not like they are losing anything by being kind to migrants. So that made me feel safe fundamentally on the nervous system. I didn't realize that until many years ago, but when I look back, I realized that's why that experience changed me so much. And so that's abundance mindset. And it's I think it's not easy. It's not very quick. I think to change going from scarcity mindset to abundance mindset. And so I just want to go back to Matthew 5. That you may be sons of your Father in heaven, for he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. So that's abundance, right? There's sun and rain for everyone. And to me, that really took me many years to arrive at a place, I would say even close to have some level of abundance mindset. It's really just overcoming a lot of childhood conditioning. And so safety, really, that's what comes down. And I think that's why our mind changes so slowly, even if we have a conscious understanding of spiritual principle or moral values. It's not that quick, that easy for our body to adjust, to feel safe enough to let go of those old narratives. So that leads to the fifth lesson, and perhaps the most important one in my case is really patience. And for the reason I just stated, it takes a long time, right? So I really, I think probably it took me about 3-4 years, possibly longer, to really have a different opinion on the immigration, on the human rights issue that I talk about. It took a lot of time. And this is, so Einstein said, if you cannot explain it simply, you do not understand well enough. So I find this to be very true when we talk about love and peace and compassion and all the important unity values. That they sound very simple. But it does not mean that they are just simple. To me, the people I have met who can just embody love and compassion and peace without thinking, just with ease, and extend this to almost anyone, those people typically have done tremendous amount of inner work. So it's, or they grew up in a very healthy environment, which means they inherited a lot of inner work their previous generations have done. So it's really, to me, it's for people who can embody those values so simply. It's really a testament to their understanding, possibly even unconscious understanding of all the complexities that are able to unite them into something very simple and embody it. And so to me, that really takes a lot of time and take a very long time, and which is definitely my case, just constantly learning and trying to let go of old narratives. And one thing I want to mention is that waiting for people to change is not, so patience does not mean to wait for people to change, because that is still a little bit a form of control, right? I've talked to you about this immigration and human rights issue for 1 entire year now. And every week we talk about this, and election cycle is coming up, and how can you still not see the humanity in those people? How can you still think away? So that's not really patience. That's still a form of control. You're expecting someone to adopt your narrative within a specific timeline. So patience to me is really releasing the need for other people to adopt the same narrative that you do, perspective that you do, on the timeline that you like. So patience to me is really releasing that need. Express what's on your mind, be curious to see what's on their mind, and release everything else. And you are a human being with common humanity as me, and therefore I can love you, I can be compassionate with you, period. All right, so those are some of the lessons that I have learned from this particular experience. And those are the 5 lessons that I instilled from this one experience that has been very transformative to me. And as I was preparing for this talk, I just thought about so many different acts of compassion that I have received that have been transformative to me. And on this one particular example, I don't think any amount of education, confrontation, inner work alone will allow me to have this change of perspective within a number of years. It was really the act of compassion that touched me and made me feel safe enough to consider different perspectives, and therefore change my view and change as a person, have more abundant narrative. And so I'm very grateful to all those people, and I'm grateful to all of you. Each one of you have all compassionate souls and changed me in ways that probably none of us can verbally describe. And so I always feel deeply honored and privileged to be able to stand here once in a while and share my experience and thoughts and gratitude with all of you. So I look forward to continue my journey to keep on learning, keep on expanding, which means I'll probably make many more mistakes and upsetting many more people. But along the way, I think that also conveniently opens myself up to receive more acts of compassion, right? And I hope to carry all the compassion that I've received forward to extend that to all the people and situations that comes into my life going forward. So this week, I'd like to invite all of you to join me on this journey, if you like, to embrace the complexity within unity, to embrace the rainbow of colors within light, and to find ways to make our compassion and love more universal and more unconditional, so that we can, our love and compassion can be more like the harder type of love that our elder brother, Wayshower, Jesus Christ, has called us to do. And so it is. Thank you.